my Doctor Who DVD collection.
It's Captain Jack Harkness, the face of both.
Okay, I did not see that coming. That was probably the most shocking episode of Doctor Who I have ever seen. So much happened in this episode which blew me away. So much happened. So yes, Bill got shot, Bill got converted to a Cyberman, we saw John Simm's master return, and we did see the Doctor start to regenerate in this episode. So many shocks and surprises in this episode. So yeah, welcome to my penultimate review of the series for episode 11 of series 10 of Doctor Who, World Enough and Time, the penultimate story of series 10, written by Stephen Moffat. And yes, Stephen Moffat's start of his last finale, and yeah, the start of Peter Capaldi's last finale, as well as the start of Missy's last finale as well. Don't know if Bill's leaving, but she has been converted to a Cyberman, so you know, maybe she'll get unconverted, but I don't see why she can get fully unconverted. Once conversions happened, it's pretty much permanent, really. So yeah, she might get unconverted, but I doubt it. I reckon she's going to sacrifice herself to save the Doctor or something like that. Nardole, is it his last episode? Well, his last finale? I do think so, as I can't see him staying on till series 11 of Doctor Who, as that's enough really for Nardole now. Even though Nardole is funny, I've grown on him a lot this series, I just kind of want him to go. So yes, World Enough and Time. What is it about? So Bill, the Doctor and Nardole decide to give Missy a test run to see how she does in working the TARDIS team. The Doctor puts them down on a spaceship which is 400 miles long and is reversing away from the gravitational pull of a black hole. At the bottom of the ship, closer to the black hole, time runs faster than at the top. So yes, it's a bit like The Girl Who Waited, that it's very complicated with time and, you know, the time streams are out of sync. So yes, Bill does get shot by this blue guy because this blue guy doesn't want the Cybermen to attack him, as they have already killed some of this massive spaceship's crew. So yes, he shoots Bill in order to prevent the Cybermen from coming up. They do come up and they take Bill down. And yes, they repair her by giving her a new heart. So yes, down at the bottom of the ship there is a lot of poor people, everything's dying, and yes, they've set up Operation Exodus, which is basically finding a way of surviving. So yes, the only way of surviving is by turning people in to Cybermen. So yes, they are doing this, and Bill unfortunately gets converted into a Cyberman. And yes, the person who Bill meets down there, who you think he's a goodie, but actually it turns out he's the master in disguise. And yeah, that did shock me as well, really, as he was a nice guy. I didn't think he was going to be the master, but in fact he was. So yeah, and I'm starting to really think now that Missy isn't the master after all. As, how did he know who Missy was, really? Because that TV screen, that didn't have sound, so how did he know that she was called Missy? And yeah, that really does get on my nerves, really. How did he know that she was called Missy when there was no sound on the thing? And yeah, I would say something which really annoyed me in this episode, which is now kind of illegal in the UK, is that when the Doctor and Bill were eating fish and chips on the rooftop, is there was newspaper which was wrapping them up. And you know, that's not allowed anymore due to hygiene issues and stuff like that, all health and safety rules which no one's really bothered about. But you know, they were eating it out of newspaper, which doesn't happen anymore. So yeah, that's just a really annoying thing, unless it was specially printed newspaper, but I don't think it was really. Well, it probably was, but it's just an error which no one really cares about, but I do. And yeah, CGI in this episode wasn't very good, really. Well, some of it was, but some of it wasn't. Especially the tear at the end when the tear came out of Bill's eyes. And I reckon a lot of people who are purely new fans are going to complain about the Cybermen's design, saying they look old-fashioned. You know, it's a classic monster. Classic monsters don't change over the years. They stay the same. And yes, this episode is Genesis of the Cybermen, as said by John Sim. Could this episode be called Genesis of the Cybermen, or is that kind of mocking Genesis of the Daleks? I was hoping it would be called that, but no. And yeah, could it have been called Exodus instead? World Enough in Time, it is a really bad title, really. The only reason why it makes sense is because time was running different from one side of the ship to the other, but it does sound pretty out of place, the title. I think it should have been either called Exodus or Genesis of the Cybermen. And yeah, that line by John Sim, that was amazing. John Sim's master, he wasn't in this episode much, but he is in the next episode. And yeah, there was really a lack of Bill, Nardole and Missy in this episode, as they were up on the top of the ship and Bill was down at the bottom of the ship. And yeah, it was mainly focused on Bill. Well, I suppose it should be focused on Bill, as it is her last story, of course, and she should get all the credit. So yeah, I do think this is the end for Bill. And yeah, a bit misleading, the synopsis, saying the doctor witnesses the death of someone he's sworn to protect. Yeah, he did swear to protect Bill, but she didn't actually die. I suppose she kind of died, but the doctor didn't realise she was dying. And yeah, at the beginning of this episode, I did think it was a flashback to the 10th planet, as it was the TARDIS in the South Pole, so I did think it was a flashback for a minute. For a minute, when the Doctor first opened the doors, his hair was slightly longer. I did think that was David Bradley playing the first Doctor, but no, it was the 12th Doctor, and that scene really shocked me. I was like, what? What? The Doctor is regenerating already? How can this happen? It's the beginning of his last story. He still has the rest of the story. But it turns out it's in a circular narrative, this story. So yeah, that's going to be at the end. Or maybe actually at the end of the Christmas special, that scene. Maybe it's just teasing you to keep you hooked for the Christmas special. Clever thing which the directors do. So yeah, personally I would rate this episode a 9 out of 10. Haven't given out any 10s this series. I've given out 3 9s, but no 10s so far. Maybe the Dr. Falls will get a 10. It really does depend. Please don't mess it up, Stephen Moffat. It's your last finale. Please, please, please don't mess it up. So yeah, this episode did think the monsters were brilliant. The villains were brilliant as well. Really, really good. Quite depressing episode, I think. It was quite a upsetting, emotional, and yeah, very spooky episode as well. This episode was really scary. I think it was more like a horror film than a Doctor Who episode, especially with the Mondasian Cybermen. Those things over their heads, they just made them look really, really scary. So yeah, this episode was... I did underestimate this episode. So yeah, well done Stephen Moffat for impressing me. So yeah, I've actually complimented Stephen Moffat for once. So yeah, that is the end of my review for World Enough and Time. Please go and check out my Doctor Who collection update for June 2017, as it is possibly my last, as my last 2 haven't got very good views. So yeah, please go and check that out. And also go and check out my Who Will Die video in World Enough and Time to see if I was right, or maybe they'll just die in the Doctor Falls. Maybe. One character has got to die in the Doctor Falls. It is pretty much certain. Of course, there's all the background characters, but I mean a major one. So yeah. Until the next time, goodbye. And yes, something else I wanted to point out of this episode. Missy was very annoying in this episode, especially at the beginning. Is the Doctor's name actually Doctor Who? As that is just really annoying. I think that his name is Doctor Who. I don't think it is Doctor Who, but I am starting to speculate. Moffat is probably just, you know, done whatever he can to bring down a show he calls awful. So yeah, is his name Doctor Who? Or is it something else? Maybe that's just Missy winding the Doctor up, as it's a joke which is all across the universe. And yeah, that dab Missy did, that was so forced. That dab was so forced. That was basically just to put in a modern trend, just to get more people watching. But in fact, it turned more viewers off probably, as that dab was so forced. It was not needed whatsoever. I think they did that back in the Christmas special trailer, just to get fans hooked for Series 10 when the dab was a thing. Now it's died down a lot and people don't normally dab, so you know, it's a bit out of place now and it was so forced. So yeah, until the next time, goodbye.